So I'm going to try and do this outside and holding the phone in a slightly awkward way. This is the fourth Patreon video that I'm making, and this Patreon video is brought to you in essence by Jayne Lockwood. Jayne and I met via the Rote podcast, which was kind enough to review Coming Home Again. And so shout out to Rote podcast for the review and the interview that they did of me. Definitely Google that and check it out. This video, I'm going to read something. This is a story that I have already posted on the Patreon feed. So I'm going to read as much of this as I can, and I hope you enjoy it. A sword's home. A sword's home is not his scabbard. A warrior's home is not her throne. Na'atala contemplated this adage, one among the 4 lessons taught at the great school. This was the place all who wanted to excel in the 10 kingdoms would want to go to, or at least their parents would want them to. She was in the latter group. It had been her matron's idea. She wanted Na'atala to be at least a viceroy in one of the far-flung colonies. That wouldn't happen unless she graduated. Still, she couldn't help but wonder why she was here and where her home was. Her first 2 months of learning were among the most brutal. Anyone could attend the first month who wanted to. There was no cost to attend and no minimum requirements, at least on paper. Most expenses were defrayed by making new students work at the most menial tasks. And if you couldn't manage your daily tasks in addition to schoolwork, you quickly washed out or died trying. In spite of her reticence in coming, she excelled. Still, the 6th day of her 6th month found Na'atala bleeding profusely from a head wound and contemplating her future. There's no shame in leaving. Abraxat's baritone was soothing and held no malice. She looked up to his pleasant face and grimaced, "None except the shame my matron will heap on me if I return home. And who says I'm leaving?" She needn't know. You don't have to return home. There's a place for any who have gotten this far in this school anywhere in the known world. He chuckled. And in my time here, I've learned to see that look and know it for what it means. Nothing holds you here but you. Na'atala nodded. Her head was crammed with the knowledge of a future scholar, and her body was beginning to show muscle and sinew, which would make any sergeant proud to have her in their regiment. What you say is true, but I don't know where my home is. I must be of use to someone, somewhere, but I don't know to whom or where. I've been here only 6 months longer than you have. He squatted, ensuring that his kirtle was gathered for modesty's sake. I'm not on the path of the warrior or the scholar. I find myself on that of the healer. If you had told me that's where I would be when I first arrived, I would have laughed. While I said, there's no shame in leaving, I don't mean you should. Just know, whatever choice you make, you are meant to be out there in the world, doing what you were made for. That's what the scabbard lesson means. I know that, Na'atala scowled. Even a first month knows that. What the first month doesn't know is that the sword and the warrior aren't made in any specific time frame, and even they must return to a place of waiting and reflection from time to time. I don't know what you're meant to do, my friend. He reached into the pouch at his waist and pulled out a healing poultice. With her nodded permission, he placed it against the wound. I do know this isn't the only place to find out, no matter what your matron said. Pardon the paper ruffle. It's a little windy out here today. With her hand over his, holding the poultice in place, her frown turned to a thin smile. If I leave here, where will I make wise friends like you? A wise friend would go with you when you leave. He crossed his legs as he sat, not trying to pull his hand back. When you are ready to leave the scabbard, you have but to let me know, and I'll join you on your journey." Her jaw slackened. "You would leave your training for me?" "There's much to be learned in the world. That is as true for me as it is for you. I would leave it not for you, but with you. Together, I think there's much we could learn." He moved forward so their bare knees touched. "It will be harder to learn those lessons without the wise teachers we have here, but have they not beaten it into us that we don't have to have them?" The throbbing in her head had all but ceased. Her heart beat twice as fast at the thought of leaving this place with Abraxat. We're leaving it, period. True. They also tell us if we leave before we're ready, we have to start over again when we return. And they tell us to speak with one of them before we leave. She patted his hand twice. He withdrew it, once sure she had it in hand. Then he took a swath of bandage and used that to bind it in place. "We don't have to rush. I just want you to know you have my hand in this." "His hand, but not his heart," she smiled. "Heart may come in time." That didn't have to be rushed either. They were both young, but neither was a fool. I'll dream on this a while longer, and remember another of our lessons. The wind cuts water sooner than rock, but water heals. They pressed their palms to each other's, and Abraxat stood and walked on his way. Naatala sighed, thoughts lightened, and lay back to let the medicine work, and dreams come. So that was actually a story based on the first line thing that I did on Facebook a while back. I like the exercise, and I think it turned out an interesting little short story. And who knows, one day it may be the beginning of something longer. Speaking of which, there is a poll on the Patreon feed, and that poll will help me decide what novel I pursue next. I've got almost half dozen ideas just in that poll alone, not counting this one and not counting a couple of others. But I picked the 5 or 6, I can't remember right off the top of my head, that would interest me the most to pursue. They all interest me, so whichever one wins, I'm not losing anything in the bargain. And it's kind of fun having you guys help me make that decision. So that's all for today's video. If you want more videos like this one that are public and you're not a patron, go ahead and back me for as little as $1. If you are a patron and you want to see more of these public videos, encourage your friends to back me. Through the end of this month, I will do one video for every new patron I get. So that's it for now, and we'll see you next time.